Welcome back to Fl'AwesomeBlossom. My name is Kiki, and today we are jumping into that way back machine. My bloomin' blossoms, mes petits choux, and my darling dahlias. And we are going to pluck a blossom from history, and we are going to let her bloom today. All right? Welcome to Fl'AwesomeBlossom. I am ecstatic to be here today, and I am really excited to share this story. All right, we are going to be talking about the 1001 Arabian Nights. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with this collection of stories, but you might be familiar with the phrase 1001 Arabian Nights, and you might be familiar with the concept of this particular book, that it is a collection of stories from the Persian Empire and a little bit of stories from India thrown in there for fun, and a multitude of other sort of Arabic stories from that particular region of the world. All right. And they were amalgamated into this book in around the 9th century. And the central figure to this book is the narrator, or the person who is facilitating these stories. So there's a story about how the book of stories came to be. And that's what we're going to unpack today. All right? Here we go. So we pictured it now. We're in that way back machine, and we're going back to the 9th century, because that is when this book, which originally was just oral traditional stories, just sort of told, but this book is the first time they have been manuscript together, purposely amalgamated, because there's some sort of rolling themes of bravery and empathy, love, and loyalty. All these themes are in multiple of these stories. So, how did this story come to be? How did all these stories come to be in one place? They were an oral tradition. They got into this manuscript in around the 9th century. And who's this central figure that's telling all of these stories? Well, let's set that story right up. All right. So here we are. We're back in Persia. And what do we know about who rules in Persia? Well, sultans, right? That's the name of the title for king. We can interchange king and sultan here, and I probably will. All right, so our story begins on the wedding night of King Shahryar. All right? He is getting married for the whateverth time, because, these men take multiple wives. But at this particular wedding, he has actually invited 3 women to step up and pass a series of tests. And if they do, if one of them passes, he's going to marry that one. But he's just sort of set this game up, right? So he invites a princess from Egypt. He invites a princess from 2 other neighboring regions to him, and he has them come. So what do we know about a royal wedding in Persia? A dowry is involved. So it is definitely an honor for a family to be considered, one of their daughters to be considered to be the next queen, or one of the many concubines of the king. But you still have to pay the dowry. You still have to give animals, gold, like tribute. You still have to pay up as well as give your daughter. But that's going to work out fine for the family, because even though they're going to pay this sort of dowry price for the bride, they're going to get a ton of stuff in return. Obviously, their family immediately is elevated to a whole other level. A whole new world. Anyway, getting ahead of myself. That's really truly it, right? Their family's going to be elevated. They're going to have access to more wealth, more resources, all of that kind of stuff. They're going to be able to marry off their other daughters to important people, and then their family lineage will just continue to elevate, right? Really good deal. So all of these families, these three families, they send these women, and the women have to go through a series of 3 tests. So the first one is they have to see if they pass the mold, not break the mold. No, no, no. You know that saying, oh, they broke the mold when they made you. Well, they're kind of referring to this little story where these women were going to have to pass through this little contraption, which is basically like a wall with the female form cut out. And then on this wall, on this cutout, on the solid bits of the cutout are many, 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 many bells. And the idea is these women are going to have to pass through the cutout to see if their shapely form fits through the mold without disturbing a single bell. So no, you don't want to break the mold here. You want to fit in very well. So this contraption is brought out, and the 3 women, all 3 of them, pass through with ease because these women are princesses. Come on. They've done all the etiquette. They know. They've stacked the books on their head and walked straight. They've done it. They know. So they all pass. Great job, ladies. Next up, a test of intellect. A question was presented to the 3 women. And it's not disclosed. Doesn't say, you know, how to solve world peace, describe your perfect day. I think it's April 23rd. No, not like that. An intellectual question. We don't know what it was. It was presented to each of the women, and each woman answered in a different way, but each of them gave such a good perspective, such a good explanation that it all worked. So the king, what to do? They've passed the mold test. They've passed the thought test, intellect test. What's there left to test? Bravery, maybe. So he instructs some slaves to come out with 3 goblets of wine. And they place the goblets of wine on this beautiful altar in front of the king. And the king invites the ladies to come and drink the wine. And he says, but before you do, I need to let you know something. I'm a sneaky, sneaky so-and-so. I'm a little bit of an imp, and I've poisoned one of those glasses. It's up to you to figure out which one's poisoned. But if this is too scary, if you don't want to put your life on the line for me, then, and for this elevated status that you're going to be in, then I invite you to leave now. And maybe this will just help me whittle down my choices. So immediately, one of them is like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if he would poison. Like, she's sort of making some faces. She's looking around like doubtful. She made a little face. So he's like, you know what? I think you're doubting me. I think you doubt that I didn't poison these cups. So to prove to you that I did, I'm going to have these 3 servants drink the wine. And the servants are like, you're going to do what now? Pardon? And the king's just like, your choice, drink the wine or be beheaded. So the servants drink the wine, and one of them drops dead right after drinking. Like, seriously, he's like, gone. And everyone in the court is like, oh, snap! The king actually did that! Now these ladies are shaken in their sandals, aren't they? And they're like, okay, forget it. One of them immediately is like, I'm out. It's not worth my life. Like, I don't, like, you can keep the 12 goats, okay? I'm sure my dad's not really gonna mind. I think he's gonna want me alive. You know, hopes this decision works out for that one. But anyway, she bows out. And the king's like, fine. Now we're down to 2 ladies. And so one of them steps up and she goes to grab the cup, but she gets a little nervous. And so she just says to the other one, after you. And this is the one that was doubtful. This is the one that was looking around and being like, oh, I don't think he would have done that. And she's like, still observing, looking around. This is what I like about this one. It's very clear in the story that she is observing. She is looking around. She's watching the king. She's watching the people around him. And you know what? I like it because I'm an observer too. Even though I do talk a lot, I'm observing. And a lot about what I'm talking about is observing and then reporting. So anyway, I like this one. She's looking around. She's now been offered, hey, after you. And she walks up with confidence and grabs the goblet off of the altar and makes eye contact with that king, and she has a sip. And the other one is like, ooh, okay, there's still 2 cups. I might be able to also make it to the next round. And she shaking, because she's got a 50-50 chance now, right? And she must know that. She's a princess. She would have had some education. She must know either this one has the poison or that one has the poison. It's not rocket science. It's math, but it's not complicated math, okay? And she flips out. It's too much of a gamble. And she just like cries and like just basically says, I can't. You can keep those 12 cows. I hope my dad doesn't kill me. And the king is like, awesome. Who's my bride? And so this woman, she comes up and she's like, well, me. And I'm like, I had to come the furthest away. So, you know, here I am. And the king is ecstatic. He's like, great, we've got a royal wedding. And so preparations are being made for a big royal feast. And, you know, in the books, it says that this guy gets married like right away. But what do we know about royal weddings? There's no possible way that a royal banquet with all of the pomp and circumstance and the ceremony, all of the people that are going to need to be invited, you can't just do it like that. This royal wedding is a big deal. And it's probably weeks, it's months in the making. All right, now let's fast forward to the wedding night. And what do we know about royal weddings? The royal wedding, the royal marriage needs to be consecrated, right? It needs to be consummated as well. And that means that basically after the feast, the bride is sort of whisked away and is preparing for her wedding night with her husband, right? Her brand new husband. And the king, the sultan, right? King Shahryar, he's a party guy. So he's having a good time at his wedding feast. So he's having a good time. He's drinking some wine. He's shaking hands. He's shooting the breeze with his buds. And he's probably delayed, right? He's not being whisked away with the bride, like the bride's being whisked away and then they're preparing her, you know, and some people are probably telling her, like, this is probably going to go bad for you tonight. He might not be gentle with you, but, you know, lie back and think of England, or not, because it's Persia. So lie back and think of whatever it is that you need to go to your happy place in your mind, because tonight the king is going to come and he's going to have sex with you. And we have no way of knowing how nice he might be about that with you. So good luck. P.S. We know you're a virgin because that's the requirement, and it would have been checked prior to your departure from your village to go and meet the king. And of course you were under complete supervision during the entire trip. So we have no reason to doubt, no reason to double check once you get here that you're a virgin. So everything's going to be working out fine for you. It's probably going to hurt, but like I said, just, you know, put your mind wherever you need to go. So she's getting the pep talk. But here's a great twist to this story that nobody knows. Maybe we'll come in afterwards with it. Maybe we'll do like too bad everyone didn't have the full picture. But here it goes. She's getting this pep talk. She's got this time between when she's in the bridal chamber and when the king arrives. And when the king arrives, you know, he's delayed, obviously, right? Shaking hands, kissing babies, doing the things that kings do. But he gets there and he goes into his marriage bed with this woman and discovers, to his horror, his dismay, his utter betrayal, that she's no longer a virgin. And it wasn't him that popped her cherry. So he feels betrayed. He feels that she's lied. And, you know, why would my loved one do this? Loved one? Loved one? You tried to frickin' kill her with poison wine. No, he didn't really poison the wine. The servant was faking. And this is why I like this woman, because she was observing and she could see that the servant was breathing. Right? Nobody took that dead guy away. She could see he was still alive. And she thought, yeah, he faked it. There's no blood coming out of his mouth. But the point is here, this is not a marriage of love. But King Shahryar basically says, you betrayed me, my love betrayed me, and he freaking kills her. Yeah, his brand new bride in the marriage bed. Like, that's it. Boom, she's dead. Now, what's really sad is that it's no fault of her own, really. I mean, yes, she made some decisions, but on the trip over, her caravan got attacked by bandits and she was kidnapped. And one of her guards rescues her and she falls in love with her guard. And on the couple of months journey to the king, like, they fall in love and they do what teenagers do, you know? Say it happened. She didn't love the king. There was no courtship. You call that a courtship? Here, pass through this. Don't jingle any bells. Riddle me this question. And P.S., like, I just did a total psyop on you with this poison wine thing, but you can still trust me. That was a test of your loyalty, not of my assholio. Okay? Anyway, whew, that poor girl. So the next day, everyone in the court is like, oh no, what just happened? And the king is like, I was betrayed and this won't stand. I need another bride ASAP. Give me one of those rejected fools from before. And so, you know, these ladies they were going to stay for the wedding because they're dignitaries in their own right. So now they're like, oh no, I'm going to be the bride. And so maybe one of them's like, oh, I love weddings. This is amazing. I'm going to be the next bride. And so another wedding feast, another bride whisked off to the bridal chamber. She's getting that same spiel in her head, right? We don't know how gentle he's going to be. You know, you're a virgin. It's going to be fine. But the king lost his mind the night he murdered that woman. And you know what? I believe it, because I think murder will change you. I think if you take another life, it alters you on some absolute cosmic level, and it probably imprints into your DNA. But he lost his noodle. So he goes through with this wedding, and on his wedding night, right after he consummates the wedding, he kills this one too. And it goes on like that. Yeah, I'm not kidding. The story goes that this guy was having a wedding and then a funeral every other month. Wedding, funeral, wedding, funeral, wedding, funeral. No murder trial, though, just so you know. And I'm sure, you know, people at the court, even the littlest page girls, even like the young ladies at the court who are very much like me, like, I love weddings, I can't wait. I'm pretty sure that after like 3 or 4 of these, the thrill of the royal wedding has worn right out. And the young ladies of the land are shaken in their saris and in their sandals and in whatever other traditional costumes of the Persian culture that might start with S. They're afraid, and I don't blame them, because The king is looking for a new bride. He's sending the invitation out. And now imagine these families just for a second, right? So a letter arrives, and you can just imagine, Mahood reading this letter like, oh no, the Sultan wants my daughter. Like, I'm going to have to come up with all these goats and pigs and everything else. And he's probably going to kill her. Am I going to remain at this elevated level? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't know how that's going to work for me. And think about what the people of the palace must be thinking. Like all the work that they have to do, all of the banquets, all of the sourcing of all this food and wine and decorations and everything. I mean, it's got to be just taxing on them as well. And so finally, the daughter of the vizier. Now the vizier is the next, like the best friend of the king. He's the counselor. He's the top counsel for the king. And he's got a couple of daughters. He's got 3 daughters, as a matter of fact. And one of his favorites is Scheherazade. And I don't blame him. He loves her because she's an imaginative child. She's had a great childhood. She's grown up in the Sultan's palace, and she has had access to education, art, science. Like, she has such an education. She was encouraged to learn how to read, to learn how to write. She was writing poetry. She was telling stories. She was always in the court. She was always listening, gossiping with this one over here, telling stories with that one over here, listening in when the men would come home from battle and listening to their stories and retelling them, right? And this counselor, this vizier, he never had to worry about her because she was a smart cookie and she looked after the other kids. She looked after the other younger daughters. So he relied on her, and he thought her storytelling was one of her superpowers because it kept the kids in line. She could easily manipulate the people in and around her, and it was a benefit to this vizier. And all of a sudden, it must have come as such a shock to him when, probably after the 13th wedding funeral situation. Yeah, it's not 4 weddings and a funeral. It is 4 weddings and 4 funerals. Possibly 40 weddings and 40 funerals. Could you imagine the shock that the vizier has when Scheherazade basically says, I volunteer as tribute? Yeah, she volunteers to be the next bride of King Shahryar. This guy who's just been killing these women faster than he could organize the next bride. Like, it's insane. And I'm sure her dad was like, what are you doing? And she's like, you know what, Dad? I got this. All right. I've got it. And we can't go on like this. So he allows it to happen. And they have the big wedding feast. And it goes a little differently than most wedding feasts because at some point during dinner, Scheherazade's like laughing, joking with her maids beside her, and then basically turns to the king and says, oh my gosh, we were just talking about Sinbad the Sailor and all of his adventures. How amazing of a man is this guy? Do you know him? And the king's like, who? Sinbad the who? What? And she's like, oh, let me tell you this story. And she begins to tell a story. And she is a master storyteller. She has such a luxurious lexicon, a voracious vocabulary. Her timing, her skill at storytelling was impeccable. And she starts to tell and weave this story, and then basically it's getting on, right? Like it's getting on at night, and soon they're like, well, you got to go to the bridal chamber and you got to like do the deed. And the king's like, but wait, I got to hear the story. And she's like, you know what? Honey, Come on, look at all of our guests. They're tired. We do need to go back there and do the thing. But I tell you what, I will finish the story tomorrow, okay? And the king's like, sounds good. So she survives her wedding night. She's the first one to survive her wedding night. And the next day, the king's like, okay, you got to tell me, you got to finish the story. And she's like, okay, that's great. Yeah. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So she starts telling the story. She picks up where she leaves off. And then she goes, well, wait a minute. Actually, I got to tell you this other story for this part to make sense. So then she starts telling another story. And again, she's like super good. She's weaving it this way, weaving it that way. And then, cliffhanger. And this is how the stories accumulate. And she manages to tell the stories for 1001 nights. And at the end of it, the king's like, okay, it's been like, almost 3 years. And you're an amazing storyteller. And I have fallen madly in love with you. You can stay. And of course he fell in love with her. Because what did she do? She used her skill set at storytelling to soften this king. He went crazy when he thought he was betrayed. And you know what? He was betrayed. Sure, he was betrayed. But you can't hold strangers. You can't be basically saying, like, you can only love me, you can only be with me. Like, there are circumstances. You didn't know this young lady, right? You weren't in love. This wasn't a marriage of love. This was a political move. And you can't be mad about love, man. You can't be mad about love. Because why? Because without love, where would you be now? Without love, where would you be right now? So you can't get mad about it. He did, though. But Scheherazade, she told story after story, cliffhanger after cliffhanger. And she told stories of bravery, of loyalty, of the milk of human kindness. And through her expert storytelling, through the tapestry of her words, she changed the king's heart. And she saved countless women from murder. She saved loads of goats and cows. But she also changed the landscape of the time because, like I mentioned, all these weddings are political in nature. So although she is a fictional character, the themes of Scheherazade's story and the Arabian Nights are still important today because we do recognize the importance of storytelling and how it really can change not just one person's heart and mind, but because of that, it can have a trickle-down effect and affect the people around those people. And it can bleed into the political landscape and it can change people's hearts. Stories change people. Your opinions can change when you are presented with facts that help you change your opinion. And stories that are heavy on the empathy, heavy on themes of love and bravery and loyalty, courage, camaraderie, and basically the human stories. It brings us back to our humanity. And that's why Scheherazade is so important even today. And I wanted to just give you a couple little factoids about the Arabian Nights as well, right? It is a compilation of stories, and most of these stories were oral traditions until in around the 9th century when they got compiled into this book. And Scheherazade is the central figure in this book, weaving these stories. And the coolest part about it is, a lot of these stories are, like I mentioned, from different areas of the world, like any place in the Persian Empire ever was, as well as sections of India. There were some stories that were borrowed from, that were clearly Indian stories that were put into this book. But Aladdin and the Lamp, that was not part of the original story. It was not part of the original compilation that was compiled in the 9th century. Aladdin and the Lamp was added 9 centuries later, in the 18th century, when the French translator, let me get his name right, I don't want to make an error here. The French translator, Antoine Galland, he's the one that did another translation of the Arabian Nights and put that out in the 18th century. And he added a couple of these different stories, Aladdin and the Lamp specifically. And he heard this from a Syrian storyteller. And this Syrian storyteller's name was Hannah Diab. And it's actually a male. It's a dude. And I also want to tell you his birth name. So we know, I'm just going to go back to the 18th century scholar guy. His Antoine Galland. That's the translator. And the Syrian storyteller is Anton Yusuf Hannah Diab. I just thought that was amazing. Anton. Coincidence? True? Question mark? Don't know. Anyway, amazing. So that is the story of Scheherazade. That is all the time I am allotting for this particular part of that story. My darling dahlias, mes petits choux, and my blooming blossoms. I hope you learned a thing or two about a thing or two. I hope that you use your voice and your stories to help change the people around you for the better, to help build a better palace within yourself, to better the people around you, better your community. All right? Until next time, my blooming blossoms, mes petits choux, my darling dahlias. Live your life in full-on blossom.